It was a quiet morning on Earth. The sun rose over the horizon, casting golden light on the world below. But everything changed in an instant. At exactly 7:32 a.m., something strange happened, something that no one could have predicted. It started as a small blip on radar screens, a minor disturbance in space, but within minutes, that blip grew into something much more terrifying. Across every news station, in every city, on every continent, the message was the same: something was coming. In a matter of hours, the world's greatest minds were puzzled and worried. Satellites scanned the skies, trying to determine what this unknown force was. The early reports indicated something huge was on its way, a fleet, perhaps 100 ships. But what kind of ships? Where were they from? And why hadn't they communicated with Earth? The first sighting occurred at 9:45 a.m. Across the world, people looked up at their screens, watching in horror as massive shapes appeared on the edges of space, blocking out the stars. These ships were unlike anything humanity had ever seen. They were enormous, shaped like sleek, angular behemoths, each one the size of a small city. The ships glowed with eerie blue lights, their surfaces reflecting the darkness of space like polished metal. Governments scrambled to figure out what was happening. Military leaders convened in emergency meetings. The United Nations called an emergency session to address the crisis. They didn't know who these ships belonged to or what their intentions were. The unknowns sent a wave of fear across Earth. For the first time in history, humanity was staring into the face of an invasion, and there was no way to know how to fight back. Tensions mounted as these ships slowly advanced, silently cutting through space, heading straight for Earth. No one knew why they had come. Was it an invasion, a test, or something far worse? The silence from the ships made the whole situation even more unsettling. They didn't speak. They didn't broadcast any messages. They simply moved forward. Then, at 11 a.m., the world got its first communication from the alien fleet. The message came through every major news outlet, broadcasting across every device in existence. It was a single line of text, stark and clear, filling every screen with cold, unforgiving words. Earth is no longer safe. You will surrender, or face extinction. The message echoed in the minds of people around the world. The words didn't just come from the ships. They felt as if they had come from the very sky itself. The message was chilling. It made no threats. It made no promises. It was simply a declaration, a warning. The invasion had begun. Military analysts quickly began calculating the power of the alien fleet. Satellites and radars could no longer detect any signs of weakness in the approaching ships. These were not just ships, they were war machines. Each one was heavily armed, brimming with advanced technology that Earth could barely understand. The sheer size of the ships alone was enough to break any hope of victory. The aliens had arrived, and they were more powerful than humanity had ever imagined. Around the world, people panicked. Nations scrambled to prepare, but how could you prepare for something so far beyond human understanding? The military set up defense systems, launched fighter jets, and mobilized ground forces, but deep down, they all knew it wouldn't be enough. Earth had never faced anything like this before. The weapons they had weren't even close to being a match for the alien technology. It felt hopeless. Earth was about to fall, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. As the ships drew closer, the global population felt a deep unease. People stayed indoors, glued to their screens, watching as the sky turned darker with the advancing ships. Everyone wanted to know what would happen next, but no one had the answers. Some people prayed, others tried to fight, but all knew, deep inside, that humanity's future was hanging in the balance. At 1:30 p.m., the world received more news. The alien fleet had stopped just outside the orbit of Earth's moon. They were close, too close. It was clear they weren't just visiting. They were preparing for something. Was it an attack? Or worse, were they simply observing, waiting for the right moment to strike? The silence between the ships and Earth was deafening, but everyone knew the danger was real. The feeling of dread crept into every corner of the world. The air felt thick with anticipation. People feared the worst. What would these mysterious visitors do? Could Earth defend itself? The nations of the world united, setting aside differences in the face of a common enemy. They began working together in ways they never had before. But it was too late. The alien ships were already there. The invasion was imminent, and humanity was powerless to stop it. As hours passed, the ships remained still. No movement, no attacks, just silent watchers from beyond the stars. The world's greatest minds continued to watch, hoping for a sign that the aliens had a different intention. But as the day went on, the message became clear. Earth was alone. The fate of humanity was now in the hands of the unknown. Then, just as hope began to slip away, Earth's military forces detected something strange. A small signal, faint but undeniably there, broke through the alien communications. A new message appeared, only this time it wasn't from the aliens, it was from Earth's own military leaders. They had prepared for this, and they weren't ready to give up without a fight. The message was simple, but it filled the world with hope. Earth will not surrender. We will fight until the last man stands. The world held its breath, waiting for the next move. The alien fleet was still there, waiting, and Earth was ready to fight back. The question was, could just one fleet be enough to stop the alien invaders? And in that moment, as the world watched, the battle for Earth was about to begin. As the sun sank lower in the sky, casting long shadows over the Earth, a sense of dread settled across the planet. For the past few hours, humanity had been in a state of pure panic, trying to wrap their minds around the fact that Earth was on the verge of an invasion from a mysterious alien fleet. News stations, government officials, and military leaders were all scrambling to react, but it was clear that no one had the answers. The world was staring at an unknown force, one so powerful that it seemed as though humanity had no chance. The first signs of resistance came swiftly. Military bases around the globe were put on high alert. Fighter jets scrambled into the air, prepared to defend the skies. Earth's strongest weapon systems were deployed, and global defense grids were activated in a desperate attempt to protect what little they could. The tension in the air was palpable, as if the entire world was holding its breath, waiting for the first strike. But the aliens made no move. They didn't attack, they didn't send any warning shots. Instead, the massive fleet just hung there, silent and still, hovering ominously in the dark expanse of space. Their presence alone was enough to paralyze Earth with fear. No one knew if the alien ships were waiting for the right moment to strike, or if they were simply watching, studying, and analyzing Earth's every move. The silence was deafening. Inside the war rooms, world leaders debated what to do next. Every military leader knew that they were vastly outmatched. The alien fleet was so advanced, their ships gliding effortlessly through space with weapons humanity could only dream of. No one could even guess the true power these invaders held. The idea of sending Earth's limited forces into battle seemed absurd. What could Earth possibly do against a force so mighty? It wasn't long before the first devastating reality set. Satellite images confirmed that these alien ships weren't just big, they were massive. The scale of the fleet was beyond anything Earth had ever witnessed. The sheer size of the ships made the planet's greatest war machines look like toys by comparison. They could wipe Earth off the map in minutes. The best minds in the world could offer no solution. Every plan they came up with was dismissed as hopeless. The alien technology was too advanced, their strategy too complex, and their weapons too powerful. It felt as if humanity's fate had already been sealed. As the hours ticked by, the mood on Earth grew darker. There was no news of any kind of diplomatic efforts, no communication from the alien fleet. The world held its breath, waiting for the inevitable. Families huddled in their homes, looking up at the sky, wondering if today would be their last. Children clung to their parents, unsure of what was happening or why the world seemed to be falling apart. But then, in the midst of all the uncertainty, a single, small voice cut through the tension. A broadcast was sent out, a single line of text appearing on every screen, every device across the world. It was brief, but it sent shockwaves across the planet. You will surrender, or face extinction. There it was, the threat. The enemy's message was clear, and it wasn't just a warning, it was a command. The alien fleet wasn't here for negotiation, and it wasn't here for peace. Earth had no choice but to surrender. The message felt as cold as ice, as though it was the final nail in the coffin. The entire planet was now on edge, unsure of how to respond to this undeniable truth. The fear was tangible. Could they really fight back? As night fell, a sense of hopelessness swept across the globe. The military tried to make contact, to offer some form of resistance, but every attempt was met with silence. What could they say to beings so far beyond them in terms of technology and power? Could they plead for mercy? Could they even make a plan that stood a chance? But Earth wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. As the global situation grew more desperate, a small but powerful group of military leaders and scientists began to come together with an audacious idea. It was a last-ditch effort, something bold, something dangerous. Could they possibly build a weapon strong enough to hold off the aliens? Could humanity rally together to fight back, or would they simply be wiped out? While the world slept, leaders met in secret. Plans were drawn up, and strategies were discussed. The idea was simple yet terrifying. Earth had to fight back with everything it had, even if it meant sending everything into space. The thought of standing up to the alien invaders seemed impossible, but the possibility of surrender was unthinkable. By the early hours of the morning, Earth's leaders issued a command. Earth was going to deploy its last fleet. It was a single, Flattan experimental force made up of the best humanity had to offer. The fleet was still in the testing phase, but they had no choice. They had to act. It was the only chance they had left. The fleet would launch as soon as possible, using Earth's most advanced weapons and technology. But the military knew this wouldn't be enough. It was a desperate move, something that might fail, but they had no other options. Around the world, people sat in front of their televisions, anxiously waiting to see what would happen next. Everyone could feel the tension. Would this fleet be enough to turn the tide? Could Earth's one remaining force change the course of this war, before it even started? At 8:30 a.m., the fleet launched. The ships, sleek and heavily armed, were designed for speed and precision. They cut through space with incredible force, leaving the planet behind as they began their journey to meet the alien fleet head-on. The world watched, holding its breath, as the lone fleet moved toward its destiny. The tension was unbearable. Could they do it? Could they really stop the aliens? But as the fleet moved deeper into space, no one expected what happened next. The silence was broken not by the alien fleet's attack, but by the arrival of something far worse. The true scale of the alien invasion was revealed. It wasn't just one fleet. It was 10 fleets, not one, and each one more terrifying than the last. The fleet Earth had just launched was about to face an overwhelming force. A battle that could decide the fate of humanity was about to begin. But no one could have prepared for the terrifying realization that Earth was outmatched. In every possible way, the real fight for Earth had only just begun. The scene in Earth's military command center was chaotic, to say the least. News of the alien fleet's true numbers had just come through, and the world seemed to stop. What had started as a single, terrifying fleet was now a much larger, insurmountable threat. 10 fleets, not one. The news spread like wildfire, causing panic to spread across the globe. In the command center, everyone was frozen for a moment, unable to comprehend what they had just learned. For the first time, fear seeped into the hearts of Earth's most seasoned military officers. The single fleet Earth had deployed, while powerful, was now a tiny fraction of what was needed to stand a chance. The initial confidence they had gathered, the hope that maybe, just maybe, they could hold their ground, was now shattered. They had underestimated the scale of the enemy's might. The situation grew even more intense as the alien fleets closed. In the first alien fleet, the one that had initially made contact, had arrived just outside Earth's atmosphere, but it wasn't alone. As the hours passed, the other 9 fleets slowly emerged from the depths of space, all moving toward Earth. In perfect synchronization, it felt like an inescapable storm approaching, one that no human force could ever hope to stop. For the first time, Earth's leaders realized that the fight was no longer just about survival, it was about the very existence of humanity. There would be no negotiations, no mercy, no compromise. The alien ships moved closer, their massive dark forms casting shadows over the planet. They were methodical and relentless, as though they had been preparing for this moment for centuries. And the worst part, they weren't even showing any signs of aggression yet. The silence from the alien fleets only made the situation feel more terrifying. It was the calm before the storm, and everyone knew it. A meeting was called in the military command room, the world's most advanced minds coming together to discuss their next steps. As everyone sat around the large, circular table, an eerie sense of helplessness hung in the air. They were faced with the impossible: stop an invasion that no one was prepared for. Against enemies so powerful that the mere thought of victory seemed absurd. They needed a plan desperately, but no one had one. The military had, for the most part, exhausted all of Earth's resources. Satellites, drones, fighter jets, all were deployed to gather intel. But they could only watch as the alien ships hovered like ominous giants in the sky. Attempts to communicate with the alien fleets were met with silence. Attempts to strike were met with failure. Earth's greatest military assets seemed no match for these otherworldly invaders. In the midst of this crisis, one commander stood up, a man who had been serving in Earth's military for decades. His name was General Marcus Hunter, and while the room was filled with brilliant strategists and experts, his reputation for thinking outside the box was legendary. He wasn't someone who would sit idly by and let humanity fall. He believed in the impossible, and right now, The impossible seemed like humanity's only hope. "Listen," he began, his voice calm but commanding. "We're not going to win by sitting here and waiting for them to strike first. If we're going down, we go down fighting. But we need a plan, and we need it now." His words hit everyone like a cold splash of water. In that moment, every leader in the room realized something they had been avoiding. Humanity couldn't just wait for an invasion to happen. They had to act now, or face total destruction. "We don't know their weaknesses yet," the general continued, "but we do know they're watching us. They're studying us. That means we can't just wait for them to make the first move. We have to give them something unexpected." An idea began to take shape in the minds of the officers present. The general's strategy was unorthodox, but it might be their only shot. They would use their enemy's silence against them. They would deploy a series of counterattacks, feints, diversions, and traps all designed to make the alien forces believe Earth was hiding something greater, something more dangerous than they had anticipated. The idea was simple: mislead, confuse, and catch them off guard. At first, the concept seemed too risky. How could Earth hope to deceive such advanced beings? But then, the reality set in. What choice did they have? The alien fleets had shown no signs of mercy or negotiation. If humanity didn't take bold action now, they would be wiped out without a fight. Earth would be nothing more than another conquered planet in the galaxy. The plan was decided. Earth's remaining fleets, the few ships still in operation, would not simply be used for defense. They would become part of a larger scheme, one that would push the alien forces into a position where they would be forced to engage in a battle they weren't prepared for. The goal wasn't to defeat the invaders outright. No, that would have been impossible. The goal was simply to buy enough time for humanity to regroup. Time for humanity to show that it wouldn't go down without a fight. As the preparations began, there was a shift in the mood. A spark of hope flickered across the command center. The sense of helplessness, of being at the mercy of these alien giants, started to fade. People were no longer afraid to act. The world's leaders, military officers, and civilians alike realized that Earth was not going to be a passive target. The war had just begun, and humanity would be fighting on its own terms. With every fleet preparing for deployment, every ship armed and ready, Earth's military forces stood united in a single purpose: to prove that they would not surrender. They would not accept defeat. They would show the aliens that humanity, no matter how outmatched, would fight with everything it had. The battle was only beginning, and even though the odds were overwhelmingly against them, Earth was ready to make its stand. As the fleets began to move into position, a voice broke the tense silence in the command room. General Hunter looked up at the screen, his expression hardening. It was time. The alien fleets were still hovering in the distance, waiting, observing. But Earth's ships were moving, and they were ready for what would come next. The battle for Earth had truly begun. The question remained, would humanity's strategy be enough to overcome the overwhelming force before them? Only time would tell. The tension in the command center was almost unbearable. Outside, Earth's fleet, a mere shadow compared to the might of the alien armada, was positioned on the edge of space. Every ship, every commander, and every soldier felt the weight of the moment. The strategy was set. The decision had been made. It was time to act, and there was no turning back. General Marcus Hunter stood at the front of the room, his gaze fixed on the large holographic screen that displayed the alien fleet. It was an image that haunted the minds of everyone present. The vast expanse of ships, their shapes jagged and menacing, their weapons glimmering with a cold, alien light. The scale was mind-boggling. 10 massive fleets, each one more powerful than anything Earth had ever seen, hung like a storm cloud just beyond the atmosphere. The fleet Earth had prepared a mix of experimental warships, newly developed defense systems, and every resource the planet could muster was far from ready to confront such overwhelming power. They were outgunned, outclassed, and outnumbered. But there was one thing the alien invaders had never counted on: humanity's refusal to give up. The plan that General Hunter and his team had devised was risky. It was untested, daring, and borderline reckless. But it was the only option left. Earth's fleet would not fight the aliens head-on, at least not in the way they expected. Instead, they would deploy a series of bold, unexpected moves to set misdirections and distractions. The goal wasn't to destroy the alien fleets. It was to confuse them, throw them off balance, and give Earth enough time to regroup and find a way to fight back. That as the ships began to move into position, the world held its breath. Around the globe, people crowded around their screens, waiting for the inevitable strike. What would happen next? Would Earth's fleet survive? Was the plan going to work? The first move came unexpectedly, shattering the silence. A small, fast-moving vessel shot out of Earth's fleet, darting toward the alien armada. It wasn't much, just one ship, but it was the distraction the military had been waiting for. The alien fleet, still analyzing Earth's forces, turned all its attention to the small vessel as it rocketed toward them. The ship was fitted with a series of powerful jamming devices, disrupting the alien sensors and communication systems. For a brief moment, the invaders were blinded, unable to detect the larger fleets moving behind the cover of the distraction. It was a gamble, one that could have easily failed, but for now, it worked. Inside the command center, a mix of disbelief and hope spread through the officers. The aliens were reacting, shifting their attention to the decoy. They were confused, but it wasn't enough. The next phase of the plan was about to begin. More ships moved out, small, agile, and heavily shielded, designed specifically for hit-and-run tactics. These vessels were not meant for direct combat. Their purpose was to harass, disrupt, and retreat before the alien forces could strike back. They launched a series of surprise attacks on the alien flanks, carefully targeted, hitting vital systems on the edges of the enemy fleets. The alien ships responded quickly, firing powerful energy blasts into the darkness. But the Earth ships were too fast, too elusive. They darted away before the aliens could focus their fire. For a moment it almost seemed as if Earth's fleet was outwitting the invaders, outplaying them at their own game. But the aliens were not easily fooled. They quickly adapted, and soon they began to send their own smaller, more agile ships to chase down the Earth vessels. The battle grew chaotic, as the two sides engaged in a deadly dance of pursuit and evasion. Earth's fleet was nimble, but the alien ships were faster, better equipped, and relentless. For every hit Earth scored, the aliens retaliated with even greater force. Yet the plan continued to unfold. The Earth fleet, despite being outclassed, had one advantage the aliens had not accounted for: they were unpredictable. General Hunter had anticipated that the alien forces would eventually regroup and start using their superior technology to overwhelm the Earth vessels. So, in the dead of night, he had given the order for Earth's forces to use their greatest weapon, an experimental EMP device that could temporarily disable the alien ships. At first nothing happened. The alien ships continued their pursuit, firing relentlessly at the fleeing Earth vessels. But then, with a blinding flash of light, the EMP weapon was activated. A massive shockwave surged through space, cutting off the alien fleet's ability to communicate and coordinate. For a few precious moments, the alien ships were blind, confused, and crippled. It wasn't enough to stop them completely, but it was enough to turn the tide for a short time. The Earth fleet pressed on, their ships moving faster, hitting harder, and retreating just as quickly as the aliens tried to retaliate. The invaders were now on the back foot, reeling from the sudden loss of communication, and Earth's forces took advantage of the opportunity. They launched a series of calculated attacks on key alien vessels, disrupting their internal systems and causing chaos within their ranks. For the first time, the aliens were being pushed back, but this victory was short. The aliens quickly regained their control, their advanced technology allowing them to recover faster than Earth's fleet could anticipate. They adjusted their tactics, launching counterattacks that hit Earth's fleet hard. It became clear that this was not going to be an easy fight. Earth was holding its ground, but the aliens were growing more furious, more determined to crush the planet's resistance. The battle stretched on for hours. The Earth fleet now engaged in a full, desperate defense. The alien armada, once so composed and menacing, was showing signs of strain. They had underestimated humanity's resolve, and now they were paying the price. But it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The aliens were preparing for a full assault, and Earth had to act quickly if it was going to stand a chance. In the chaos of the battle, General Hunter's voice rang out across the command center. "We've bought ourselves some time, but we need more. Earth's last chance is coming, and we'll fight for every second we have left. Prepare for the final push." The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and Earth's fleet, though battered and bruised, wasn't about to give up. The war was far from over. It was only just beginning. The night was long, and the stars outside Earth's atmosphere had never seemed so distant. Inside the command center, General Hunter's face was set in grim determination. The alien forces were regrouping, preparing for their final push, and Earth's fleet, though it had held its ground, was running out of options. The battle had reached a critical point. No one had expected the Earth fleet to survive this long. Against all odds they had delayed the inevitable, but the clock was ticking. Humanity's greatest hope now rested on the shoulders of these ships. As the alien armada began to realign its forces, a new wave of fear swept over the commanders. Their ships were battered, their defenses stretched thin. Despite the bold tactics, the hit-and-run attacks, and the surprise EMP strike, the aliens had proven to be more resilient than anyone had anticipated. The gaps in Earth's defense were beginning to show, the odds were quickly becoming impossible. Yet there was something in the air, a spark of defiance. General Hunter paced before the strategy table, his mind racing. The distraction tactics had bought them time, but they weren't enough. The alien ships were adjusting, their coordination improving by the minute. Soon, Earth's fleet would be outmatched in every regard. The final confrontation loomed. But then, something unexpected happened. A signal came through, one Earth hadn't sent, one that didn't originate from any of their ships. The alien fleet had broadcast a message to Earth's remaining vessels. Your resistance is futile. Prepare for annihilation. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement of fact. The alien forces were no longer playing games. They were closing in for the kill. The message hit Earth's command like a punch to the gut. In that instant, every officer, every soldier, and every commander knew that the end was near. It was as if the aliens had stopped pretending, as if they were confident that victory was inevitable. But General Hunter, standing at the center of it all, refused to show fear. His mind was sharp, calculating. Earth was not done yet. With the alien fleet growing ever closer, General Hunter's strategy began to crystallize. His eyes flickered across the command room, meeting the eyes of his senior officers. There was no going back now. Earth's fleet had to push forward with everything it had. The time for defense was over. The only option left was to strike with the full force of human ingenuity, to give the aliens something they hadn't expected, a final, devastating surprise. The fleets took position, moving into formation. There was no hiding from the alien armada now. The Earth vessels, damaged, depleted, but resolute, prepared for the last stand. It was a desperate move, a strike that could either turn the tide or doom humanity. Hunter had one last ace to play, and it was a gamble no one in the command room thought would work. The fleet's remaining ships, stripped of non-essential cargo, had been retrofitted with a series of long-range experimental weapons. These weapons were capable of sending powerful, focused energy bursts across vast distances, weapons that had never been tested in live combat. Earth's scientists had worked for months on the technology, and it had never been used in battle. Before the general had decided that now was the time, the idea was simple: hit the alien fleet hard and fast, before they could react, before they could use their superior numbers to overwhelm Earth's fleet. The countdown began. On the bridge of Earth's flagship, the atmosphere was tense. Officers worked in silence, each of them focused on their station, their minds set on the same goal: survival. General Hunter stood at the front of the room, watching the screens as Earth's last fleet prepared to fire. He felt the weight of every life that depended on this moment. Every decision, every sacrifice, had led to this point. The engines hummed as the ships activated their experimental weapon systems, the air heavy with anticipation. "Fire," Hunter commanded, his voice steady but filled with the unshakable determination of a leader who refused to bow. Across the fleet, a flash of light erupted as the first of the energy bursts was released. It cut through space like a razor, its beam focused and precise, aimed straight at the heart of the nearest alien ship. The beam collided with the alien ship's outer shields, causing a massive explosion that illuminated the surrounding space like a second sun. The shockwave rippled through the fleet, sending alien vessels careening off course. The immediate impact was stunning. The alien ships had never seen anything like it. For the first time in the battle, they were thrown into disarray. But it didn't end there. Earth's remaining ships fired again, one after the other, unleashing a barrage of energy blasts that tore through the alien defenses. Each strike found its mark, crippling alien vessels, tearing through shields, and causing explosions that shook the fabric of space itself. The surprise attack caught the alien fleets off guard, throwing them into chaos. They had underestimated humanity. They had not prepared for this kind of resistance. For a brief moment, the odds shifted. The alien forces, so confident just moments before, were now scrambling. Their once formidable fleets were reeling, their defenses compromised. It was the opening Earth needed. But despite the momentary advantage, General Hunter knew it was still too early to celebrate. The alien forces were quick to recover. Their ships adjusted, regrouping, and soon, they began to retaliate with all the fury they could muster. Waves of laser fire and energy blasts shot toward Earth's fleet. and in response, Earth's ships shifted position, dodging and weaving, using the wreckage of destroyed alien ships as cover. The space around them became a deadly dance of destruction. Earth's forces were pushing back, but it was far from over. The battle raged on, and as each side exchanged blows, the true scale of the struggle became apparent. The alien fleet was vast, but humanity was fighting with everything they had: desperation, defiance, and the will to survive. General Hunter's mind raced. There had to be something more. With every passing second, Earth's fleet was growing. Weaker, the aliens were adapting. The window for victory was closing. Then, as if by instinct, he made the decision. There was one final option left, a final assault that would either end the war or finish the destruction of humanity. He ordered the remaining ships to deploy every remaining energy burst to make their final stand. Earth's fleet would push everything into this last attack, a final effort that would either break the alien fleets or destroy them completely. The gamble had begun, and Earth's future now rested on the brink of annihilation. The final assault was underway. A deadly silence gripped the command center as Earth's fleet unleashed their last remaining energy bursts, each shot reverberating through space with the force of a thunderclap. The very fabric of the universe seemed to tremble as the beams of energy cut through the darkness, colliding with the alien ships that had once seemed invincible. The first few strikes were successful, creating massive explosions that sent debris scattering across the cold void. For a brief moment, hope flickered like a dying ember. But the aliens were not easily defeated. They quickly regained their composure, their superior technology allowing them to repair damaged ships and reposition their forces with terrifying speed. What had initially seemed like a breakthrough now seemed like a fleeting victory. The aliens began retaliating with unrelenting force, their weapons firing in a synchronized barrage that forced Earth's fleet to dodge and evade at the last possible second. The energy blasts flew so close that they ignited the shields of Earth's remaining ships, sending shockwaves that rattled the hulls and pushed the crews to their breaking point. General Hunter stood at the front of the command center, his hands gripping the railing as he watched the battle unfold. His mind raced, searching for some way to turn the tide, to exploit the alien forces' weaknesses. The original plan had been bold, but now the enemy was adapting faster than anyone had predicted. The alien fleet had regained control, pushing Earth's forces into a corner. They were losing, there was no denying it. The situation was dire, and the thought of surrender was starting to creep into the minds of even the most steadfast commanders. But not Hunter. He had lived through too many battles to give up now. He had led soldiers into combat countless times, and he knew that the key to victory was not in brute force alone, it was in the ability to outthink the enemy, to find that one vulnerable point and exploit it. And right now, the aliens' arrogance was their greatest weakness. "We can't afford to wait for them to make the next move," Hunter muttered under his breath, his eyes scanning the battlefield. "It's time to act. Now." He turned to his senior officers. "Prepare the second wave. We're going to break their formation. We're not waiting for a miracle, we're making our own." The officers looked at each other, some unsure of what Hunter was suggesting, but others nodded grimly. There was no time for hesitation. Earth's fleet, weakened and battered, was still more than capable of one last desperate push. The key was in their unpredictability. The aliens had underestimated humanity's ability to think on its feet, to adapt in real time. They believed that the war was won, but they had made a fatal mistake. The second wave began to deploy. Earth's fleet, still maneuvering through the chaos of the first strike, suddenly shifted course in a coordinated move. Ships that had been running low on power began rerouting energy from non-essential systems, converting every last ounce into their engines and weapons. The fleet scattered into smaller groups, each one targeting a different part of the alien formation. It was a tactical maneuver designed to confuse and divide the enemy, to make them fight on multiple fronts at once. The alien commanders, caught off guard by this sudden change in strategy, scrambled to adapt. Their once unified formation splintered, as their ships broke apart, trying to defend against Earth's dispersed forces. For the first time, they looked vulnerable. The command center erupted into controlled chaos as data streamed in, confirming that Earth's fleet was having an effect. The alien ships were starting to hesitate, their once immense advantage slipping away. The aliens had relied on their overwhelming numbers and technological superiority, but now they were facing something they hadn't anticipated, a determined enemy willing to sacrifice everything. It was then that Hunter saw the opening. The lead alien vessel, the one commanding the entire armada, was vulnerable. Its shields had been partially weakened by Earth's earlier attacks. and it had been forced to redirect its power to its defensive systems. This was the moment. General Hunter slammed his fist against the console, his eyes blazing with the intensity of someone who had nothing left to lose. "Target the command ship," he ordered, his voice cold and resolute. "Give them everything we've got." The remaining Earth ships, though heavily damaged, responded with a fierce determination. The weapons systems, once thought to be too experimental to be effective in combat, now became Earth's secret weapon. The energy bursts that had previously been used as distractions were now honed into focused, concentrated beams, each one aimed directly at the heart of the alien fleet. The alien command ship, massive and imposing, was now in the crosshairs. The blast hit with a force that shook the surrounding ships. For a moment, everything was still. Then, the explosion came, a brilliant burst of light that consumed the command ship in an instant. The shockwave spread outward, slamming into the surrounding alien vessels, causing massive damage. The alien fleet was thrown into disarray, their coordination shattered. It was the blow that Earth had been waiting for. But the aliens were not completely defeated. Their other ships, though shaken, quickly regained their composure. The remaining fleet commanders issued orders to regroup, to prepare for a counterattack. However, the damage had been done. The loss of their command ship was a devastating blow. The remaining alien fleets, once so unified and powerful, were now fragmented, and their attacks lacked the precision and coordination they once had. Earth's fleet, battered but not broken, took full advantage of the confusion, with the aliens scrambling to reorganize. Earth's forces struck again, moving with newfound urgency and determination. The alien ships, though still formidable, were now on the defensive. They could no longer rely on their superior numbers or firepower. They were fighting on Earth's terms, and the outcome was no longer certain. For General Hunter, this was the moment he had been waiting for. He knew that Earth's fleet was far from invincible, but now they had the upper hand. The final push had begun, and Earth's forces, tired but resolute, pressed forward. This wasn't just about fighting for survival anymore. It was about proving that humanity, against all odds, could stand its ground and fight back. The war was far from over, but the tides had begun to turn, and Earth, battered and scarred, was no longer willing to accept defeat. The silence in the command center was deafening. After hours of constant, grueling battle, the tide had finally turned. Earth's fleet, against all odds, had pushed the alien armada back. The alien command ship was destroyed, their fleets scattered and disorganized. The once overwhelming force was now in disarray. General Hunter stood at the front of the room, his eyes fixed on the holographic display, watching as the last remnants of the alien armada slowly retreated into the depths of space. The victory was almost too hard to believe. The battle had been fierce, the stakes had been unimaginable, and the cost had been enormous. Earth's fleet was battered, many of its ships barely functional, their crews exhausted, their resources depleted. Yet, here they were, standing tall as the alien invaders retreated. There was a feeling of disbelief hanging in the air. Could it be? Had humanity really done it? A voice cut through the silence. "General, we've received a transmission from the alien fleet. They're pulling back." Hunter's eyes narrowed, and his pulse quickened. It wasn't over, not yet. The aliens were retreating, but that didn't mean they were done. The war was far from over. But the message they were sending was clear. The invaders were no longer willing to fight on Earth's terms. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were leaving defeated, humiliated, and broken. As the news spread across Earth's military channels, cheers erupted from every corner of the globe. It was the first real sign of hope since the war began. Humanity had survived, and Earth had stood its ground. The world, which had been filled with despair only hours before, now found itself united in triumph. Yet, despite the victory, the sense of victory was tempered by the sobering reality of the battle's cost. The fleet had won, but at what price? Hunter walked to the front of the room, looking out at the tired faces of his crew. They had given everything they had, and more. They had pushed themselves beyond what anyone thought possible. They had survived against impossible odds. He had no words to offer, no speeches to make. There was no need. The victory was enough. "We did it," Hunter said, his voice hoarse, but filled with quiet pride. "But this is just the beginning. We've shown them we won't back down, that we can stand toe-to-toe with the strongest force the galaxy has ever known. But now, the real challenge begins." The room fell silent again as the gravity of his words sunk in. The alien threat had been repelled, at least for now, but the war was far from over. The aliens would be back. They had tasted humanity's resistance, and they wouldn't forget. The victory was important, but it was only a brief respite in what would likely be a long and difficult war. Hunter turned to face the screen, where the alien fleet was now retreating, slipping into the vastness of space. He knew it wasn't the end. The aliens would return, they would rebuild, and they would come back stronger. But now, Earth had the advantage. Humanity had proven something vital. They had proven that they could fight, that they were not so easily crushed, that they were not just a primitive race to be swept aside. And as the alien ships disappeared into the blackness of space, a sense of determination washed over Hunter. He knew that the world had changed forever. The battle for Earth wasn't just about survival, it was about forging a new identity. One where humanity's place in the universe would no longer be ignored or underestimated. Earth had stood tall against a force that seemed invincible, and that would send a message to the galaxy. Humanity would never be an easy target again. Around the world, people watched in awe as the news of the victory spread. It wasn't just a military triumph, it was a statement. The invasion had been repelled, but more importantly, humanity had come together in a way it never had before. Old rivalries had been set aside, petty differences had been forgotten. In the face of extinction, the people of Earth had united, and that, more than anything, was what had made the difference. But even as the celebration began, Hunter knew that this victory was temporary. The alien invaders would be back. Of that he was certain. They would regroup, rebuild, and plan their next move. The war was not over. It was only just beginning. Still, Earth had proven something important. They had shown the universe that they would not be easily defeated, that they would fight to the last breath, that they would do whatever it took to protect their home, and that message would resonate across the stars. In the following weeks, Earth began to rebuild. The fleet, battered and broken, slowly started to recover. Scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to repair the ships, to develop new technologies, to strengthen Earth's defenses. Earth's leadership focused not only on rebuilding the military but also on fostering unity, on ensuring that humanity remained strong, united, and prepared for whatever came next. But in the back of General Hunter's mind, a single thought lingered. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. The aliens would return, and next time, they would come with even more force, more determination. Humanity's victory had been hard won, but it was only the beginning of a long and brutal conflict. The fight for Earth had just begun. As Hunter looked out over the horizon, he knew that no matter how hard the battle would be, humanity would not give up. The survival of the species was at stake, but humanity had something that alien invaders did not: resilience, the will to fight, to survive, to protect everything they had built. And that, more than any weapon or technology, would be what carried them through the darkness of the war that lay ahead. The future of Earth was uncertain, but one thing was clear: humanity was ready to face whatever challenges the galaxy had in store.